Brand new for the 2024 Braves Country Radio broadcast season. Along with pitch-by-pitch, play-by-play, the classic call of Braves Country Baseball, we will bring you a live pregame show and postgame show. Phone lines wide open for you to call, react, or ask your questions along with the chat. That's Braves Country today pregame, Braves Country tonight postgame. We'll see you in 2024. Hey, Braves Country, this is Mac McKee with Braves Country Radio. We are bringing you pitch by pitch, play by play of your Atlanta Braves all year long. Please like and subscribe today. It's free, and it helps us bring you more of the game we all love. Braves Country Radio, your home for the classic call, Braves Country Baseball.
Here's good news. There's still a need for hundreds of thousands of cybersecurity professionals in the U.S. right now. And My Computer Career is training people to help meet the demand. No IT experience? No problem. Take the free career evaluation today. Start your new life as an IT pro in as little as 4 months. Grants covering up to 53% of the cost are available to those who qualify. It's not rocket science. It's mycomputercareer.edu.
Enjoy sun-drenched days, epic stays, and plenty of room to roam in Greater Fort Lauderdale. Our hotels, attractions, and restaurants have taken the Visit Lauderdale's Safe and Clean pledge so you can relax and explore with confidence. When you're ready for that well-deserved staycation, our 23 miles of golden beaches await. Find wide-open spaces to hike, bike, kayak, and paddleboard. Visit your favorite attractions, then dine out in style in dining rooms or al fresco on waterfront patios. Learn more at sunny.org.
Braves Country today. We're talking Southern sports. We go live 3 to 5 weekdays right here on WQEE. Braves Country today, Southern sports talk with the voice of Braves Country Baseball, Mac McGee. Joined every day from sports analysts from all over Braves Country, talking college football, the NFL, Major League Baseball, and what's trending in the world of sports. Braves Country today. We go live 3 to 5 weekdays right here on WQEE.
It all starts with just one thing. When recycling, rinse out jars and cans, and avoid recycling wax paper or paper soiled with food. This will reduce recycling contamination. Find tips and more at onethingus.com. What's your one thing?
Hey, Braves Country, this is Mac McKee with Braves Country Radio. We are bringing you pitch by pitch, play by play of your Atlanta Braves all year long. Please like and subscribe today. It's free, and it helps us bring you more of the game we all love. Braves Country Radio, your home for the classic call of Braves Country Baseball.
Hey, sports fans, it's Rod Peterson here, host of The Rod Peterson Show, inviting you to join us daily for 2 hours of Atlanta's funnest sports talk right here. I say fun because it is. You've never heard a show like it because we make the listeners a part of the show every day between noon and 2 p.m. Eastern. You'll hear plenty of the best sports talk, including the latest on the Falcons, the Braves, and more. And who knows, you might even hear you. That's the Rod Peterson Show, daily at noon, right here on WQEE 99.1 FM.
Brand new for the 2024 Braves Country Radio broadcast season. Along with pitch-by-pitch, play-by-play, the classic call of Braves Country Baseball, we will bring you a live pregame show and postgame show. Phone lines wide open for you to call, react, or ask your questions along with the chat. That's Braves Country today pregame, Braves Country tonight postgame. We'll see you in 2024. Braves country. All right, Braves country, how are you? Hope this day is finding you well, and I hope you're ready for the season because it's on us. We've just got a little over a couple of weeks, about 2.5 weeks. Pitchers and catchers will report for your Atlanta Braves set right now for Valentine's Day, February 14th. We've got a lot to get into and a little time to do it. Apologize for not seeing y'all in a while. If you missed the news, we got hit with COVID at our house. And so it's been a tough couple of weeks starting to get on the other side of it. I do apologize for my voice, but did everything we could to stay away from it, and we still got it. So this is the first time that we've gotten it that we know of. We believe, talked about this before, but we believe that we might have contracted it just before it became a thing in the U.S. in 2020, late 2019, very early 2020. We had all the symptoms that they say go along with it, and we ended up under the weather for a few weeks. So anyways, since then, we've gotten all of our jabs and everything, have been able to avoid it, and went into greater detail with that on the first hour. But anyways, ready to rock and roll, and hopefully, hey, look at the bright side. We got through it before the Super Bowl, and we got through it before baseball season starts, so hopefully everything is rolling. They have announced that through June, TBS will have 2 Atlanta Braves ball games. And those are typically Tuesday night games. And what you're looking at with that is they will be blacked out in the Bally's territory. So if you have Bally's Sports South in the Atlanta market, those games will be blacked out on those nights, unless you have TBS. If you have TBS, you're going to be fine. Now, I haven't really understood why that is. You would think if it's blacked out across the board. But it says that I'm going off of Justin Toscano's tweet, and he says they will be blacked out. The 2 games will be blacked out in Bally's territory, as Bally's also has those games. So Bally's going to be broadcasting those games. So if you're sitting in, the way this is laid out, if you're sitting in Iowa, you can still catch it on Bally's. But if you're sitting in Atlanta, which is really strange the way they're doing this. All the others kind of make sense, but this one's really weird. But that's what's going to go down. We'll get that update as it goes along as far as what games they are and what dates those will be. But right now, the schedule is leaking out on that. See if they've got it updated. They had it up in the air. Let me see here. See the full schedule. Here we go. They have released it. So let me get through all these ads, these pop-ups, and I'll be able to get it to you. Okay, let me see here. April 16th. Well, this is not a shock. April 16th, 8 o'clock. Braves are at Houston, and that game will be on Bally's. And then on May 21st, will be on TBS. And then on May 21st, Braves and Cubs, 7:30. So 1 in April and 1 in May, and that takes you all the way through June. They've only decided on the schedule through the month of June. And if they do it the way they did it last year, they will release the rest of the schedule as we get a little closer to June. Usually just before it turns over into June, we'll get the rest of the schedule, because at that point they'll have a good idea of what games are and what games are not going to be important. So once again, if you're just joining us, if you have Bally's and you live in the Atlanta, Georgia market, in the Braves market, I should say, not just the Atlanta, Georgia, but in the Atlanta Braves market, meaning if you're typically blacked out and you went out and you purchased Bally's, you're going to get blacked out, and I really don't understand that. But you're going to get blacked out so they're going to force you to buy TBS. But yet, if you have the MLB package and you're living in Iowa or Washington or Arizona, you'll be able to see it. You'd think it'd be all one way or all the other, but anyways, that's how that will play out. And of course, regardless, you'll be able to catch the game here, as we will have pitch-by-pitch, play-by-play of your Atlanta Braves for all the games. Right now, what we're planning on doing is we are planning on having every single game except for Sundays, and Sundays it'll be a crapshoot. It really comes down to the time. We're going to bring you a lot of the Sunday games, but we're not necessarily going to bring you every Sunday game because of my outside work schedule. But that's the plan right now. Sundays, especially in the early going, it'll be a lot easier to break it down. But there you have that. Okay, so that's that. If you're wanting to know the rest of the TBS schedule, I can't imagine it's really something that a lot of people care about outside of their home team. But it is up on Awful Announcing. You can find it on Twitter. But essentially, you got a lot of games involving the Astros, what I'm seeing. You've got, is it 5 or 7 games that they said? Let me see. 5 games of the Yankees. You've got a couple of Phillies sprinkled in there. The first one of the year, by the way, is Tuesday, April 2nd, Reds at Phillies. Cubs are on there a few times. You've got Cubs are on there 3 times. And you got the Dodgers and the Mets squaring off. You got the Phillies and Red Sox squaring off in June. And so there you have that. So that's the TBS. So we set that aside and we get into the rest of the show. Real quick, we want to jump on the Hall of Fame inductees. And look, I'm not taking anything away from the guys that got in. I think the guys that got in were well deserved to get in. And I know some people have a problem with the Joe Mauer thing, but something that you've got to understand with the Joe Mauer is that with Joe Mauer going into the Hall of Fame and he gets in on his first try, the numbers that Mauer put up in his first 9 years were really good. And you're not talking about Joe Mauer as just a hitter. You're talking about Joe Mauer did this at the catching position, and that's why he got elevated. I saw one person sent me a link that basically was describing that when Joe Mauer, if you put Joe Mauer's numbers up against Don Mattingly's numbers from a distance, it looks like Don Mattingly's had a better career. But the thing about Joe Mauer is he had an incredible 9-year presence, and then he really tapered off because of injuries. But he did that at the catching position. He didn't do that at the first base position. And there's a big difference between your production coming off the plate, as we all know. It's one of the reasons why I think Yadier Molina is going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer. I'll be shocked if he's not. His offensive presence is not really there. But you know what he did behind the plate. And so when you put those two together, that's why Mauer got in. With that being said, Joe Mauer, if you draw the comparisons of the fact that if you're going off of the argument, and this is what we're understanding them to do, they're going off the argument that Joe Mauer is getting in because of what he did at the beginning of his career, and he's not being penalized from falling apart at the end of his career, then explain to us why Andrew Jones isn't in the Hall of Fame. Because it is the same exact argument. Andrew Jones, for 10 years, was the best center fielder to play the game. Defensively, he has no peer. Defensively for 10 years. And you can say, well, he fell apart about the age of 30, but realize he started playing at the age of 19. So for 10 years, you're talking about him being dominant center fielder, and that's why he belongs in the Hall of Fame. That's why I'm not going to kill Joe Mauer for being in, because it's the same argument I've been making for Andrew Jones. What I don't like is that the idiot writers, the idiot voters don't see that comparison. And a lot of it's because a lot of these schmucks are out there writing for their teams, and they may have only seen Andrew Jones up close and personal when he started to fall apart as a Dodger, as a Yankee. And that's what they're holding him to, that standard. But for 10 years, and you can talk to anybody who played the game, who covered the game, who covered the Atlanta Braves in that time period, there was never a better defensive center fielder in the history of the game. Yes, I'm talking to you, Ken Griffey Jr. fans. It's not even close. It's not even close what he did defensively. He played so shallow in center field that pitchers talked about when they came over to Atlanta, they would look back and go, hey, are you going to back up? And they're like, nah, man, he's got it, man. He's got it. Don't worry about Andrew. Andrew Jones stole singles. You couldn't get the ball over his head. As great as we think Michael Harris II is, he doesn't hold a candle to what Andrew Jones was doing, because Andrew Jones was just that damn good. This is not a knock against Michael Harris. Michael Harris is one of the top defensive center fielders in all of baseball, at least with the glove. With the arm, he's pretty good. Andrew Jones, the arm, the glove, there was not one single peer. Not one single peer. And everybody that followed the game at that time, whether they played in it, whether they covered it, if they saw him up close and personal on a daily basis, and I'm not saying they had to physically be in the ballpark, I'm talking about if they were watching it at home, he is by far the best defensive outfielder the game has ever seen, and it's not particularly close. Willie Mays says he's the best outfielder he ever saw. Willie Mays. And this was not putting down or scoffing over guys like Ken Griffey Jr., who were phenomenal in their own right. But there was just another level. It's kind of like when people talk about how athletic and how game-changing Michael Jordan was in the game of basketball. They're not tearing down what the other guys of his day were like. They were just saying, man, there was this guy, and then there was the rest, and that's exactly what Andrew Jones was. And offensively, he was phenomenal. He leaves Atlanta. He gets the big contract to go to L.A., rightfully so. You go want to make your money. And then he just could not stay healthy. Who knows? I don't know if it had something to do with the training facilities out there. Remember, this is before the Dodgers management and ownership had changed hands, so they were not looked upon as the cream of the crop as far as taking care of their players. It's a different story in 2024. So maybe he wasn't being held to the same level of excellence that he was being held to in Atlanta. But all I know is that when he left and I saw him come back and play, every time I would see him play, I was like, man, he is getting slower. He is not the player that he was, and it happened quickly. But Joe Mauer getting in the Hall of Fame, I don't have a problem with it. But it's about damn time that you put Andrew Jones in, because this is ridiculous. As far as Billy Wagner is concerned, Billy Wagner, if you look at his numbers as a left-handed reliever, he really has few peers. He should be in the Hall of Fame. I think he will get in. He's starting to trend up. I think I read that he missed by 6 votes. So when you consider that next year's class is kind of a weaker class, I believe Ichiro is the only slam dunk. Billy Wagner will get in. Andrew Jones should get in. Gary Sheffield has missed his window. But I don't believe Gary Sheffield is getting into the Hall of Fame anytime soon. Because remember, the reason why, and everyone, it's so funny that the people that go on these social media and they share his stats and they do this like thinking emoji, like, why is he not in? And they're trying to draw all these different conclusions. It's because he's been linked to steroids, and all of the steroid guys have gotten snubbed. It's not just Sheffield. It's not just Bonds. It's not just McGuire. It's not just Rafael Palmeiro. It's all of them. Now, there's been a couple that have snuck through that you say, hey, wait a minute. There were whispers. And they snuck through. And I can't defend that. But all in large, you haven't had a bona fide steroid guy get in. If Barry Bonds gets in on the Veterans Committee type of vote, or Roger Clemens, or Mark McGuire, once that happens, that door's going to get kicked through and guys like Sheffield are going to get in. But Gary Sheffield worked out with Bonds in the offseason. Gary Sheffield is linked to all the stuff that Bonds is linked to. And though he has denied it, he hasn't emphatically denied it, but he has denied it, so has Bonds and so has Clemens. They've never come out and said, yep, it was me. There's only been a couple of those guys that have actually done it. So I don't see Gary Sheffield getting into the Hall of Fame anytime soon, because he's going to have to now get in on a Veterans Committee, and those are being those are being controlled by the players, and the players, the Veteran Players Committee, they do not agree with anybody who did roids. They don't vote for him, and rightfully so. If you did it the right way and you got into the Hall of Fame and you think that they made your job a little more difficult because they were cheating, would you vote for them? They're just not going to do it. You can stand there at the high heavens and bang the table and say they belong in and they belong in, and I'd put him in, and he would have been in the Hall of Fame even without the roids and all that stuff. You can sit there and get on that soapbox. But I'm telling you right now, I'm always going to side with the players who did it the right way, because they know a hell of a lot more than you and I do as far as what using those steroids did. And there, you hear guys like John Smoltz talk about it all the time, and they are against it because they look at it as, why did I do it the right way and you found a cheat code? And yeah, look, you made your money and you made your deal with the devil. That doesn't mean that I have to sit here and vote you in and have you honored. Here's something else that I think a lot of folks have never thought about. Think about this. Let's say there's a day in our lifetime where Barry Bonds, Roger Clemens, Mark McGuire, Sammy Sosa, I'll just put those four. Let's say those four get in on a given year. Can you really have a ceremony for them? Because I have read many quotes of older players, not just the old school guys like the Willie Mazes of the world and before he passed Hank Aaron. But I'm talking about the old school guys, the ones that played in the 80s and 90s and whatnot. They have all said, if you put him in, I'm not coming to the ceremony. Do you know what kind of black eye and how bad look that's going to be for Major League Baseball when they're inducting those four knobs into the Hall of Fame, and there's basically like 3 or 4 people in the background when you normally if any of those guys can walk, talk, or stumble their way to the stage, they're there. They're there as long as they're alive and kicking. And then you all of a sudden have an empty stage. You'd almost have to do it in a private ceremony and put it on TV that way, where you're kind of changing the optics so people don't realize it, because nobody's going to stand up behind them and clap for him. And I will say this, good to see some of y'all in the chat. Gary, Summit, Tony. Andrew Jones does belong in, but I will say this, Todd Helton belonged in. That was long overdue. You cannot hold it against Todd Helton that he played in Colorado. Because, first of all, he didn't design the damn stadium. So you can't do that. You've already set the precedent that Larry Walker goes into the Hall of Fame and he was a Rocky. So anyways, but the point is, Todd Helton was well overdue. Todd Helton was a hell of a hitter. And they took too long to put him in. But I do agree with the idea that if Todd Helton's in, then Andrew Jones should be in. They should both be in. And I will continue until the day I die, which hell could be sooner than later if I get hit with that COVID again. And I'll tell you what, that thing kicked my butt last week. I do not believe if you were on the juice, you belong in the Hall of Fame in the way, if you've ever been to the Hall of Fame, Barry Bonds is in the Hall of Fame. Roger Clemens is in the Hall of Fame. They're just in upstairs in the museum part of it. But the part of the Hall of Fame that you have to understand of when they're putting their plaques up and they're honoring them, that's the key thing, they're honoring them. And I'm not going to honor a cheater. I'm just not going to do it. That's why it's always a loaded question about the Pete Rose thing. For years and years, I said, man, leave him out, to hell with him. Now I've changed because I say he wasn't cheating the game per se, and he's paid his dues. I look at it now, it's been 35 years. You got to let Pete Rose in. But before I will kowtow to that, Shoeless Joe has been out of the Hall of Fame, arguably one of the greatest players of all time. It's been over 100 years. So before I will get on board and say, you got to put Pete Rose in, and maybe it's because I wasn't a Reds or Phillies fan and he wasn't one of my favorite players. I never disliked Pete Rose. He was just a very good player while I was growing up, but he wasn't my guy. I was a Dale Murphy guy. But before I worry about putting Pete Rose in the Hall of Fame, I want Dale Murphy in the Hall of Fame. I want Andrew Jones in the Hall of Fame. I want guys that belong there that did it the right way. But if you do put Pete Rose in, either before or on the same day, you got to put Shoeless Joe in. You just got to. You cannot stand on that argument that it's okay for one guy to gamble one way and another guy to gamble the other way. Because nothing ever proved in the Shoeless Joe argument, it was never proved that he actually bet on baseball. And I think he probably did. I think he took their money. But if you look at his numbers, he would have been the MVP of the series had they won the series. So it's a double-edged sword with that. I've softened my view on Pete Rose because I have much more of an appreciation of what Shoeless Joe was. But I do believe Pete Rose, after 30-something years, what do we have to wait for the guy to die? I mean, my God, he's not Charles Manson. He bet on a couple of baseball games. According to him, he bet on them to win. I'll take his word for it. But even if he didn't, it's been 35 years. 35 years. Rhys Hoskins heads to the Milwaukee Brewers. If you missed that a couple of days ago, Rhys Hoskins, so he won't be back with Philly. We already kind of knew that, but now it's in stone. 2-year deal. He does have a 1-year opt-out. I was surprised that they allow the opt-out. If I'm going to invest in you, I don't understand why you should get to opt out after just 1 year. I would have been all for it as if you're a Milwaukee fan, you say, I give him a 3-year deal, but he can opt out after 2 after he's reset the value. Fine. But Rhys Hoskins gives the Brewers actually a little bit of punch in that lineup. So that's interesting. And the other big thing, and I find this extremely, extremely interesting. And I heard rumblings about this at the end of the year last year, but I never saw it verified until just recently. Charlie Culberson is going in to spring training at 34 years young, trying to make it not as an infielder or an outfielder or a utility player. He is trying to make it as a relief pitcher. And that to me is fascinating. I'm going to be following that story all spring. What I did not know about this until just a few days ago, did a little research on it. They said that he was getting on the mound last fall down in the developmental leagues, and that's how they had him on the roster as a developmental player, is how he was designated, which is how he was able to work out with the team and use the facility and whatnot, but not be on the 40-man. He was hitting the radar gun at 93, 94 miles an hour, and this is a guy that's never pitched in professional baseball. So you're talking about a guy who's even spent an offseason working on his delivery. If you've ever pitched and you're coming off the mound, there is an art form to knowing when you're releasing the ball, getting your weight transferred over, et cetera, et cetera. That's why normally when you see guys come on to pitch and they're soft tossing, even the ones that will try to throw a fastball, you'll see them top out around 80 miles an hour because there's a feel to it. It's not that they don't have a cannon for an arm, like an Andrelton Simmons or a Sean Dunston or a Vladimir Guerrero Sr. back in the day. But it's the fact that you be able to learn how to pitch off that hill. So with little time, he has thrown 93, a couple times spotted at 94 miles an hour. And he hasn't even begun to start as the prospect at 34 years old. Look, best case scenario, in a season or two, Charlie Culberson could be a guy in the front end of the bullpen for the Braves who comes in for damage control, right? Not a guy that's necessarily, he's not going to become your closer overnight, right? But a guy that comes in when the game's a little out of control in the 5th or 6th inning, you go eat some innings, Charlie, go get him, right? At the same token, he's on your roster, and it's a poor man's version of it, but he's much like Shohei Ohtani, where he could still go out and play in the outfield or the infield if you need him to fill in. Pinch hit, pinch run. So I think this is fascinating. I'm really rooting for the guy. I hope he finds a way to get it done and make the major league roster within the next year or two, because it would be really cool to see this guy. And one of the reasons why he decided to do this, they said that he's always had an itch. He's wanted to try it, but also he's got a house in the Atlanta Braves area, right? And he'll be able to go and drive from his house. He's got kids, wife, the whole 9 yards. They're in school, but he'll be able to live in his house and drive to, let's say he's at the Rome affiliate, and still live in his house, and his kids go to school, et cetera, et cetera. He didn't want to go sign with, Colorado Rockies, Los Angeles Angels, go bounce around in their minor league system. He doesn't mind doing it because he lives right up the road. So I think it's a unique and it's a fun story. And I hope we get a chance to see him a few times in spring training. We are waiting for the spring training official television schedule to be released. We know the days and the times of all the games. We just don't know what games are going to be broadcasted. Once we know that, we will release our broadcast schedule for Braves Country Baseball. And regardless, we will be ready to rock on opening day. We're going to be going until we get into spring training. We're going to be doing this every Thursday once again, 4:00. We'll be staying on here for about a half hour, just kind of get you caught up to speed. When we get into spring training, the plan is to probably go back to Mondays and Thursdays, and that'll take us all the way to the season. Once we get to the season, Braves Country Today will come your way just before the game, and then Braves Country Tonight post-game show will come your way. That's being added this year. Braves Country Tonight will finish your night off after the game. Most games we will do a post-game show. The only times we won't do it is when we just simply cannot fit it into our schedule. But the plan is most of the games we do, there will be not only the live pregame show. It'll no longer be pre-recorded from 3 o'clock. It'll be the live pregame show and then the live postgame show. So we're going to go ahead and dip on out of here. Hope y'all have a great day, and go Braves, and good luck, Charlie Culberson, because this could be one of the funnest things. If he makes the team somehow this year, this would be an absolute unbelievable story. Y'all have a great one.